Good morning. I'm Becky Reed. As most of you know, I know all of you, I think. I'm your worship leader today, and today I'm so glad that you all could join us. Welcome to our modified version of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Hendersonville. Due to icy road conditions, including our parking lot and probably many of your driveways, we decided it was safer to hold the service via Zoom. Fortunately, our guest speaker, Marc Mullinax, is able to join us today. Although we cannot hear the choir or sing our hymns this morning, we hope you will find our offerings a time for reflection and for spiritual growth. I have a few announcements. The Congregational Forum to focus on UU identity will be rescheduled from today to next Sunday, January 19th, after the coffee hour around noon. Please bring a bag lunch. Part 2 of this discussion will be held Sunday, January 26th. The annual Martin Luther King Day breakfast will be held Monday, January 20th. That's not tomorrow, but next Monday at the Blue Ridge Community College Tech Center Auditorium. The doors open at 8:15 when breakfast will begin to be served, and then the presentation will be at 9. The Unity Breakfast celebrates Dr. King's vision by bringing the community together to reflect on his legacy and recognize those who embody his commitment to unity and service. This year's theme is service, and this year's speaker is DeShannon Bynum Dixon. And one last announcement. On February 2nd, Sunday, February 2nd, Reggie Harris, a songwriter, storyteller, and lecturer, is our guest speaker Sunday morning. His music is written from a personal sense of mission that merges a worldwide point of view with a singularly hopeful stance that life, though often challenging, is filled with possibility and hope, which is our theme today, hope. Reggie is also presenting a concert of Family Revealed from Slavery to Freedom in the sanctuary at 2 p.m. that afternoon. Harris, a descendant of an enslaved woman and her master, provides a unique, entertaining, and inspiring look at what we can be when we face the truth with open hearts and minds. The suggested donation is $20. I'd like to introduce Marc, who almost doesn't need an introduction. He's been with us so many times. Marc has spoken here 30 times, actually 30 or more times in the past 22 years, speaking on matters ranging from separation of church and state, free will, joy, on how not to thingify persons, and imagining religion without an afterlife. He has authored a translation of the Tao Te Ching and runs a podcast called Power for the Peaceful on Taoism. Marc was a professor of religious studies at Mars Hill University for 22 years and now works as a house interpreter at the Biltmore House. He has 2 granddaughters that inspire him to be here today. Welcome, Marc. I have a chalice that I would like to light. I don't know if you can see it. My name is blocking my image, but I think you can see it. For the beauty of the earth, the spinning green ball, yes. Gaia, mother of everything, we walk gently across your back to come together again in this place, to remember how we can live, to remember who we are, to create how we will be. Gaia, our home, the lap in which we live. Marc is now going to give an opening reading and then his sermon. Marc.
Good morning, everyone. It is great to be with you, however it is, and I hope that we can be together in person sometime soon. The reading for today comes from a Catholic monk you may have heard of named Thomas Merton in a book or a essay he wrote called Hagia Sophia. He writes, "There is in all visible things an invisible fecundity, a dimmed light, a meek namelessness, a hidden wholeness. This mysterious unity and integrity is wisdom, the mother of all. Nature just doing what it does. So today, my friends, we consider hope. Okay, where does hope come from? How do we achieve, sustain, and practice hope in our hard and vexing times? Hope is one of those big three humanizing qualities that we might do well to cultivate. Faith, hope, love. In the coming years, or maybe even longer, might we need and even can we develop some deeper refresh about the nature of hope? So together, let's open up the hood on hope, inspect the spark plugs, the air filter, add more coolant. I mean, there's a lot on our hot plates these days. There's the usual climate change, this Damocles' sword hanging by slender threads over our children's futures. And then there's this President 2.0 about to take office. Seems like his first term was just a rehearsal for what's to come. And then there's the abiding racisms, the nuclear threats, the wars without end. I don't mean to start with a downer, but please forgive me. Hope seems well timed and a timeless topic. So let's start with a cartoon from Anti-Acid. She's sitting on her easy chair. She looks at you from the page and she declares this: I grew up with Steve Jobs, Johnny Cash, and Bob Hope. Now, no jobs, no cash, no hope. Please don't let anything happen to Kevin Bacon. It's hard to do that when I can't hear you laughing, but I hope you did. So we all know what hope is, don't we? I hope it doesn't snow today, or hope y'all have a great trip, or hope my team wins the Super Bowl this year. I hope they have chocolate ice cream. Is that hope? They seem more like questions for light conversation. And I know that you, if you're like me, every spiritual talk you've ever heard about hope begins this way. You know, when we say hope, most of the time we walk the shallow waters of wishes and wishing. Maybe we have a too casual relationship with hope, like it's a relative of magical or wishful thinking. Fingers crossing, horseshoes over the door, four-leaf clovers. But for what we need today, magical or wishful thinking feels like trying to light a candle in the darkness during a 50-mile-an-hour hurricane. Think about the last time that you visited a hospital room of a friend or family that had fewer than 50 chances out of 100 surviving. Add to that what has to be the despair over the near future of our Earth. Add to that, and I'm being real, not political, what slender hopes does democracy actually have to strengthen in our near future? Does real hope have anything to do with these? Do we leave to chance the progress that we have made together in race relations, gender identities? I do suspect that if we face our times and situations without the practice of deep hope, we might as well give up, retreat to our screens, and live with heads in the sand. Yes, there are what we call demons out there, but do we have to keep inviting them in and giving them the best seat by the fire? So we talk about deep time and deep ecology and deep space and deep freeze, even deep dives, as if there's a different quality and experience for these. So let me add to our deep list, deep hope. Is there such a thing? Have we a need for it? Yes. Can we find it or can it find us? Yes. And then can we practice it? Yes. I hope. I hope. Deep hook is like a chainsaw. It does good work, but only in skilled hands. The hope that I hope to get across is natural, easy to see, hard to practice. So let's step back. What hope did enslaved blacks have, like the families of Mr. Harris, for the most part? What hope did they have to stay alive to our time with their vibrant cultures? Surely that's real hope. In the 400 plus years of pillaging their lives, liberties, and land and labor, through the flaying of their backs, the chaining of limbs, the destruction of families, the rape of mothers, the sale of children, and other atrocities intended first and foremost to deny them the confidence of being secure and masters in their own bodies. Did they have hope? James Baldwin, who was relentless in his criticism of white Americans, said that blacks, in his opinion, were the only Christians, the only hope for this country. I quote Baldwin, "The only people in this country at the moment who believe either in Christianity or in the country are the most despised minority in it. It is ironical. The people who were slaves here, the most beaten and despised people here, should be at this moment the only hope this country has. It doesn't have any other." So, how did blacks in times of enslavement and Jim Crow practice their sustaining and transforming hope and pass the torch of this hope down the generations, even as they were turned into fuel for the American dream from which we all benefit today? Does 406 years of African American survival have anything to teach us about the hope we need in January 2025? What if hope is the opposite of our insane histories and is actually an intentional act of survival and revival? Martin Luther King was right, I think. Somehow, only when it's dark enough can you see stars or hope. Maybe our time this morning may be accountable to the ways Black lives have and have not mattered as an enforced population of aliens. May we be up to the task. So my thesis: hope is the countercultural communal practice of who we really are at our depths in the face of death. Rebellious hope, alternative, reframed visions of possibility rather than everybody crossing their fingers. So the hope of which we might consider is rational in our times, sane instead of otherwise, life-giving, practicable, and countercultural, even insurgent. Hope is first a non-conforming middle finger against the current set of inhuman conditions, and second, the resurrection of a misfitting community of hope that conspires to bring things back to humane conditions. Today's message is sponsored and brought to you by 4 words. First in our lineup of Considering Deep Hope is the word imagination. Hope is an imagined reality that will come to pass. But before that coming to pass, consider this. What creates despair in us is also fueled by the imagination. Imagine outcomes, imagine catastrophes. The unexamined or undisciplined imagination can approach any door in our brains, turn the key, open the door, and let terror walk right on in. Because with our imaginations, we color our worlds. We perhaps stupidly practice imagining only the worst things as if they were real, mistaking them for reality. I'm trying not to catastrophize on what January 20th will lead to this year, but I confess it's hard not to, for I have trained my brain to be full of this rutted thinking about how only the worst can or will happen. And we live in this empire which reminds us all the time that only its experts, only its politicians, bought and paid for by the empire, by the way, only they have the answers. Repetition of such ideas grow into grooves and deepen in our brains. And when left unattended, grooves tend to become ruts and then ditches and then graves. My friends, the only difference between a habit or a groove in the brain and a grave is the distance. So if I train my brain to imagine poorly, well, hello, I can untrain, unlearn, and reframe and reimagine. Because unlearning and reframing are human superpowers. If we are to be a community of awake resistors of empire, we'll need a well-trained superpower to imagine differently. Congregations like ours could use a minister of imagination who retrains our brilliant brains to reimagine hope. Because in our country, in our world, from birth on, parents and schools and religions and screens and advertisements infiltrate and water down our abilities to imagine well. Now, if we can imagine catastrophes that seem to threaten, can we not reimagine them and reframe them as opportunities? To reframe weapons as tools, reframe an imagined enemy as a future friend or ally. Imagination can close us down, yes, but imagination, when trained, opens us up too. Ugly ducklings become graceful swans. You know, Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, he reframed prison experience, asking his fellow inmates not so much to resist and accept imprisonment, but ask how they could reframe concentration camp life and ask, what is prison life expecting from us, from me? Because there were people in the camp who had so lost hope that they had nothing left to expect from life. Franco was able to help them to reframe and see that, quote, life is still expecting something from us, unquote. One inmate, for example, had a child still alive in a foreign country who was waiting for him. Another came to see that he had books to produce that no one else could write. Their purpose in life. So Franco was able, so through reframing death into a sense of a new life, Franco has helped them discover their purpose in life, even while they are living in the valley of the shadow of death. They still had tasks to perform, missions still to accomplish. The concentration camp was no time to close accounts. As some of you know, I love Chinese. The Chinese character for hope has these enriching implications: to anticipate or to expect an appearance of something not yet visible. Hope is excitement, something you can actually plan on, like a train or bus schedule, something intended or meant from the beginning. And we could use these Chinese variations on hope to guide us. That's point one of four. Second, this talk is brought to you by community. Joining forces, not staying solitary, becoming a force of individuals, a community united by a common confidence, which I think we are. Over and over in my talks with you, I've emphasized this, so I'm not going to spend much time here except to recast yet again Marge Piercy's poem called The Low Road in Your Presence. And I'm doing only a little bit of it. Notice the progression. Two people can help keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, massage, hope, sex. Three people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With four, you can play bridge and start an organization. With six, you can rent a whole house, eat pie for dinner with no seconds, and hold a fundraising party. A dozen make a demonstration. 100, they fill a hall. 1,000 have solidarity and your own newsletter. 10,000, power and your own paper. 100,000, your own media. 10 million, your own country. And here's the money shot. It goes on one at a time. It starts when you care to hope. It starts when you do it again. It starts when you do it again after they said no. It starts when you say we and know who you mean, and each day you mean one more. Third, our talk today is brought to you by Thomas Merton's phrase we've already heard: nature just doing what it does. Nature. Do we really believe that we might actually learn much in the classroom of nature? Our cultural norms tell us in so many ways that humans are fundamentally other than nature, that we're not entangled with her, for she's beneath our attention span, not worthy our time. For example, what possible curiosity or interest does a possum or a yellow jacket nest hold for us? Or slime mold? And if you don't know about slime mold, well, do so, slime mold. But what about rocks? We'd rather commodify nature than practice curiosity about her. But I tell you this, it don't take much of nature to rewire our brains, our imaginations. You regularly walk and go to nature, right? You have her vision within you, right? If not, just go look at a stream, a tree, sit on a rock, watch and interact with earth, air, and other beings for an hour. No phone. You'll come away changed as nature's rhythms start to rhyme with the rhythms that are already yours. Ancient rhythms and both of you syncing up, just doing what you do within at the same time until you realize you're both tuned the same already. As the late Irish mystic poet John O'Donohue wrote, if you go out for several hours in a place that's wild, your mind begins to slow down, down, down. And what's happening is that the clay of your body is retrieving its own sense of sisterhood with the great clay of the landscape. That gives me goosebumps. Our separation from nature is the hardest work we do. That is the most damaging to ourselves. Our separation from nature is unnatural. I mean, duh. And unnatural don't last. The world, including us and rocks and slime mold and even yellow jackets, is built and operated by and does best when nature is allowed to do what it just does. The universe is already maintained by an original, ancient, peaceful set of processes that began and still continues. These are the universe's factory settings, the original instructions, and these are who we are. If we unsubscribe, that is, forget our factory default settings of original peace, we enable the rise of always unnatural preconditions of disease and violence, isolation, tribalism, competition, misunderstanding, selfishness, and yes, being hopeless is a dis-ease, a prelude to violence, somehow, somewhere. Again, regard nature. I mean up close and personal. Do as O'Donohue suggests. Watch that stream, tree, habitat, rock, just an hour. Do you see any competition taking place? Things or animals trying to be noticed like all the time? No, they're always cooperating and infinitely overlapping and interweaving and interpenetrating. These ancient processes of nature just happen naturally. And they are the ones that keep the universe going. From these very processes, we learn and grow hope. For the way and ways of the universe, or the earth, or the meadow, are not just us, and not for just us, but also the very processes that give rise to hope. We've already noticed sunrise after sunrise, season that arises and is replaced by another, waterfalls, procreation, a thunderstorm or flood replaced by moderate rain. These are hope in action. And even if we recover naturally from even when we recover naturally from accidents and diseases, sometimes without interventions from the medical world, is that healing a one-off? No. Our processes, our recoveries, our syncing with nature, they train us. They are our, get this, our syllabus for hope. We learn best from the invisible fecundity and hidden wholeness of nature's processes, for we are nature too. The same water in us is in the waterfall, the rainstorm, the same DNA and all. The corrective for all our temporary and violent ways of living separately from nature is singular. Allow the justice that is already embryonic to bloom. If what is natural is also originally just and peaceful, then there's our ultimate, deep, and ever-renewing source of hope. We are formed by this hope. We are transformed by this hope too. This is why I suggest rather strongly that our disconnect from nature is the hardest thing we do. Hardest as in the most destructive, for we are naturally connected with all nature's processes, including her syllabus of hope. Our blueprint is nature itself. Human beings come rooted in and from earth, which is nature. There's no separate human nature, no stone nature, no yellow jacket nature. Aligned with nature, what room is there for fear? The Christian mystic, medieval Christian mystic, Hildegard of Bingen. Everything that is in the heavens, she wrote, on earth and under the earth is penetrated with connectedness, penetrated with relatedness, which gives us quite a foundation, a deeply rooted foundation on which we can stand. And it's the young who haven't been adulterated by adult ways, who also often remind us best on how and where to stand for hope. There's young David in the Old Testament, Joan of Arc, Malala Yousafzai, I can't say it, Yousafzai, Antigone, Mother Mary, Greta Thunberg, they did not get the oh so adult memo that they should despair, but rather repair. Finally, practice is our last sponsor word. We can practice distraction. We can practice small thinking. Can I get a witness? Hope, my friends, is not just a tool, but a tool with which we practice. When we come into that hospital room, into the gloom of a compromised future for Earth, we come into that room and gloom, though, with a practice of awareness of what else is going on here? What needs reframing? Despair, said my favorite wizard Gandalf, despair is only for those who see the end beyond all doubt, and we do not. Our response to Helene or cancer or whatever it is not capital T, the capital E, end. We've always known that death is a kind of boundary to our current life, but that which we are and that with which we have influenced the world does not end. It persists. Gloom is not our destiny. We can practice gloom. We become what we repeatedly do, but we were not born hopeless. We may have become that way, but that is not our destiny. We're not creatures of an easier or occasional optimism. We are spiritual athletes trained in deep hope because we observe nature. We know our interconnections with an always teeming, fertile nature. I don't know what happens after we die, but I cannot think of it as barren and infertile. We re-enter that never-ending, generous womb. And again, with hope's processes in nature, we are reborn, whatever that means. So we can practice being reborn today. We can practice resurrection now, like winter becoming spring. Hope is always the reinvention of ourselves, our communities, from death to life. There's a poem I want to quote a couple lines from by Rilke. If we surrendered to Earth's intelligence, if we surrendered to Earth's intelligence, we could rise up rooted like trees. Instead, we tangle ourselves in knots of our own making and struggle, lonely and confused. So, like children, we began again to learn from the things because they are in God's heart. They've never left God. This is what the things can teach us, to fall patiently, to trust our heaviness. Even birds have to do that before they can fly. That's from Rilke's Book of Hours, Love Poems to God. Conclusion. When we let nature be dead, a commodity, then hope disappears. The gift of nature to the trained imagination is hope. We were formed by the trustworthy, eternal processes of hope, and we become transformed by these very same processes, even in January 2025. Life is our education in hope. Hope comes from the eternal way of the universe. It survives, it overcomes, and it quietens us with confidence. Somewhere within us is the free person I was, or you were, born as. Locate him or her, allow them to reimagine good in this hard and hurting world. Reframe it as a place of service. Hope has not forgotten us. It's not abandoned us. So wake up. All we have to do is just rejoin what's already there. No telling what will come of this conversation when we let hope have the last word. Thank you so much.
This is a time we normally have our joys and concerns, share those. However, obviously that is difficult today, but I think we can certainly hold in our hearts all those who are suffering right now from the California wildfires, excuse me, and other worldwide catastrophes that are occurring. We can hope, as Marc has said, that rebirth will happen in all these cases. I do have a meditation that I would like to read if you would enter into a state of prayer and meditation. Earth Mother, Star Mother, you who are called 1,000 names, may all remember we are cells in your body and dance together. You are the grain and the loaf that sustain us each day. And as you are patient with our struggles to learn, so shall we be patient with ourselves and each other. We are radiant light and sacred dark, the balance. You are the embrace that heartens and the freedom beyond fear. Within you, we are born. We grow, live, and die. You bring us around the circle to rebirth. Within us, you dance forever. Starhawk.
Here are our final words. We can get drunk on the liquor of despair and hopelessness and stay drunk, oblivious to the signs of hope that we each are. Or we can sip the eternal liqueurs of hope and little by little change ourselves, change the world, because we are made of lighter and finer stuff than our local prophets of doom say. Oh, my congregation, my UU congregation, oh, yeasty seeds, spread yourselves out into this world and grow. May your days begin in peace to become wombs of radical and contagious deep hope.